Vicki.
And I'm Cecilia.
I remember as a young child my mother making bread. As a wonderful aroma filled the house, a comfort and security filled my heart just knowing that my mom was in the kitchen preparing fresh bread. I can almost taste it now.
When I was little, my mom would let me help her make bread. I loved to put my little hands in that soft dough as I helped her knead it. I remember the first time I made bread on my own. I got so excited at seeing those beautiful brown loaves coming out of the oven. So we want to invite you to the kitchen where we'll share with you how wonderful the art of bread making can be. Okay, in this segment we're going to show you how easy and wonderful it is to make bread. Jasmine, I'm going to need you to get me 2½ cups of warm water. Okay. When you make bread with a basic recipe, you have basic ingredients: yeast, oil, salt, and honey or sorghum. Most recipes call for honey, and we'll probably use honey today. You have warm water. You don't want it too hot, and you don't want it too cold because it will kill the yeast. It needs to be comfortably warm. So we're going to start out by putting this 2½ cups of warm water in this bowl here, and I need to add flour. Now, I need a measuring cup, please, Jasmine. Okay.
And this is fresh ground flour, right?
Yes, fresh ground wheat flour here. And we're going to put 2 cups in here, like this. Just kind of put that in there. You want to get a teaspoon of salt there for me?
Okay.
Here, you stir that, I'll get the salt.
So we're just stirring this to dissolve this flour in the
I'm going to add a
water.
teaspoon of salt and a ½ cup of oil. That. Okay, we're going to do a ½ cup of honey.
It smells good already.
Oh, it does. Let's see. The honey makes the bread taste so wonderful, and it helps the yeast to activate. The sweetener of the honey helps the yeast to activate in your bread. Let's see, get some of this honey out. Okay, we want to mix that up really well there. Now we're going to add the yeast. And this recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of yeast. And different recipes probably call for different amounts of yeast. It depends also on how many loaves you're going to make. This is going to make 2 loaves. So I'm going to sprinkle this in here. Like that. Stir that in. Okay, we're going to need more flour after this. Now, we're going to add flour to this till we get a nice soft dough. This recipe calls for 4 or 5 cups, and I'm not necessarily going to, I'm just going to add enough flour till I think it's a soft dough. I don't want it to be too hard, so it might not use all 5 cups. It might only use 4 cups. And I want to start out with, if you want to stir it, Jasmine, why sprinkle this in there. Just kind of add in the flour, about 1 cup at a time, stirring it in nice and good. Right, 2 cups here.
It's getting thick.
Yep. Stir this in. Okay, get 1 more cup. See how it's getting to be a real sticky dough there? We're gonna add a little bit more flour.
Just sprinkle it.
Yeah, just sprinkle it around there. I'm gonna mix it a little bit more with a spoon here, but fixing to knead it with my hands now. I love this part of making bread. Still a little sticky, add a little bit more.
Okay. And isn't it right that the less flour you use, the more moist and soft your bread will be, and
Yes,
the lighter it will be?
that's right.
You don't just want to dump the flour and you'll have a heavy loaf.
Right. You want a soft dough. That's, your key. And this dough right here is nice and soft and it's pliable. And that makes a good light bread. Now what I'm doing here is I'm kneading it. As you can see, I'm just kind of punching it in. Get it all mixed together really good. Okay, we might put a little bit more flour in here because it's getting a little sticky. I get it on my hands there so my hands won't stick in the dough too much. Now some people, like in some recipes, say knead your bread for 10 minutes. Some say 15, some say 5. I never really timed myself. I just knead it till I think it's nice and soft. You don't want to knead it where it's like hard. That's not good. You want it just soft and pliable and kind of rubbery feeling in a way. And I think this is about ready for our next step, which is we're gonna let it rise. So we might need to put a little bit, you wanna put a little bit of oil in this pan?
Sure.
We're gonna put a little bit of oil in the bottom of our bowl here so it won't stick there. Just spread it around there. And lay it down here in the bowl. Now when you let your bread rise, this is one of the most important parts of making bread, because the better and longer it rises, the better bread you're going to have. I like to put my bread in a warm place, and I like to place a towel over it. Some people let their bread rise at room temperature. 80 degrees is the perfect temperature really for your bread to rise. So if you have an oven and you want to put it on just a really low setting for a little bit and then turn it off and you put your bread in that oven, you can let it rise there for about an hour and a half. It's double in bulk. All right, it's been about an hour and a half, so let's see what it's done. Be real careful with it because I don't want it to fall. Oh yes. So what we're going to do now that it's risen, double in bulk, we're going to punch it down, and then I'm going to knead it a little bit here on this surface, and then we're going to put it in our pan. So Jasmine, if you want to oil these pans for me, I already put some oil in there, and I'm going to start punching this down. This dough feels so good. It's warm and it's soft. That's a good thing. I'm going to dump it out here. Set that there. Yeah, put some flour there.
There we go.
Knead it up. Well, we need flour down here. Some people, I use flour. I like to use flour, but some people like to put oil down and oil their hands. Either one works just great. Probably you don't want to use too much flour because, you know, like I said before, you don't want to put too much flour in your bread. I don't want to knead it too long because I've already done that once. So are those about ready?
Yep, I think so.
Whew, this is sticky.
You want to get your oil all the way up on the sides so that, because your bread's going to, rise to the top, so even around the edges too.
And a little too much oil. I'm going to go ahead and oil my hands here. Oil this breadboard because it's just sticky, sticky, sticky. Now, I'm going to divide the dough here into 2 parts, just kind of like that. You kind of like to eye it and see what you think, you want it to be even. And I'm going to just put it in these pans here. You want to set it in there, and I like to kind of form it in there so it makes a loaf shape. Doesn't look too good in there right now, but we're going to let it rise a second time. That's another thing. After we put it in these loaf pans, we're going to put it in the oven again, a little warm, and we're going to let it rise a second time, which I in the loaf pans, I like to let it rise about another hour so that your bread is risen up like that and it starts looking like bread. Now, a good thing to do is to poke holes in the top of your bread before you put it in to rise, because that helps with the air. So I just take a fork and I just go like this. Just a couple times down the loaf there. Now we're going to put it in the oven to rise for a second time, and that should take about an hour, somewhere around there. You need a towel. I like to cover it with a towel. That helps it. There we go. All right, after your second rising, which is about an hour long, you're going to bake your bread at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. You'll start smelling the bread, and it smells so wonderful at this point. And you'll notice that the bread, it might be a little golden brown on the top, and that's good. That's when your bread's just about done, about 30 minutes. So I think it's ready for us to check our bread. All right. Doesn't that smell good, Justin?
Yes, it's delicious.
Oh. Careful. Wow, look at that.
It's beautiful.
It does smell good. And there's your bread, all finished, and see how it's nice and brown on top. And now, to get it out of the pans, what you can do is, I like to let it cool on a rack, or just like this, for about 5 minutes. And then we take a butter knife here and gently just kind of stick it in the edges here. If you have good pans, you shouldn't have to worry about it sticking in the pan. Just kind of, go like that. And that just kind of helps it loosen up from the pan. And that is making bread. Very simple and fun, and anybody can do it. All right, now we're going to show you how to make sourdough starter. Sourdough is a different type of rising that you can use for your bread. It makes very delicious bread. It's healthier for you. You want to use glass or plastic bowl to put it in, and use a wooden or plastic spoon to stir it with. All right, we need 2 cups of flour. So get my flour over here. Measure it in here. Sourdough is just really fun to play with and create with. It's wonderful bread. And let's see.
Then you need 3 tablespoons of sugar. We're just using regular white sugar here. There's 1, 2, 3.
I'm gonna mix these dry ingredients together. All right, 1 tablespoon of yeast. Put that in there.
And a 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
Stir it in here. Another nice thing about having glass bowls is you can watch it as you let your sourdough starter sit for about 48 hours or so it will ferment. That's the whole point of sourdough, is that it's fermented. And it's nice to use glass bowls. You can watch it as time goes by, and it starts bubbling and it turns and looks different and has different stages. So that's another nice thing about using glass bowls, if it's a see-through glass bowl. We want to put 2 cups of warm water in here, and you don't have to check the temperature or anything, just as long as it's nice and comfortably warm. So put some in here.
This is probably a little too warm, so
yes,
I'll add some cold.
That's going to be too warm. We don't want it to kill the yeast. Some cold water in there.
I think that's good.
All right. Yep. And just mix this in here.
Oh, this is easy.
Yes, it is. Very easy. After you mix it up good, we're going to put a cloth over this. And you can just set it out room temperature, somewhere where it's not going to be in your way, but somewhere where you can go by and check on it No, every so often it's stirred in, because what will happen as the hours pass, this stuff will start bubbling, and it'll start looking different, and it'll start smelling different, and it starts fermenting. And what you want to do is, in your 48 hours, is you want to go by and just stir it up a little bit. And so we're gonna cover it now with this towel, and we're gonna put it in a nice place. You don't want it too drafty, but it doesn't have to be in a airtight place either.
So what happens after 48 hours?
Well, it is ready to use. You can store it in your fridge if you want, just like this. Or if you want to use it in a recipe, that calls for sourdough starter, because this is what this is, sourdough starter. You can use it in your recipe or anything like that.
And what about when I have used some? How do I replenish it and keep it going?
You just add, it's really simple, you just add equal amounts of flour and water back into your sourdough starter, stir it around, and then put it back in your fridge.
And what kind of things do you like to use this in?
Well, my favorite is pancakes. It makes the best sourdough pancakes. They taste so good. But it makes really good bread. It makes a sweet bread. You can put it in biscuits. You can put it in, just about any breads.
And this is mainly in place of the rising or the
Yes,
leavening?
it can be used in place of yeast or leavening, or it can be used along with it.
Okay.
Like if you have a recipe that calls for sourdough starter, it might add, say, and 1 tablespoon of yeast or whatever. It can work that way too. And then some recipes might just call for the sourdough starter itself and no other leavening. And that is how fun and simple and easy it is to make sourdough starter. There's no secret to it.
Okay, now we're going to look at some fun things to do with quick breads, and we're going to get started with some hamburger buns. I'm going to take my flour, because you have, as usual, you have the basic ingredients of flour and yeast to make them rise, and salt and oil and water and milk is what we're putting in this, and some honey. And I'm going to take 2 cups of flour and, where's my measuring spoons? There they are. And 2 tablespoons of yeast. Those together. And I'm going to mix them up together. Can you hand me a fork, please? Just blend these together real good. I'm going to eventually add 2 more cups of flour, but to start with, just starting, with the first 2 cups. And then we're going to heat up some milk. Pour that in. Let's turn this on. What is that, like a cup of milk? And
Yeah.
we'll need about 3/4 of a cup of water. And our salt. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt to this. You want to heat it to very warm, just comfortably warm. You don't want it to be like, where it burns. You can use your wrist to test it, and you don't want it to burn, but just be really warm, so that will activate the yeast, because if you get it too hot, it'll kill the yeast, and if you don't get it hot enough, the yeast won't activate at all. So we need a 1/2 cup of oil. And we're going to add 3 tablespoons of honey. That also helps the yeast to activate. You can go ahead and pour that in. You might want to start stirring that up. Wow, my honey's getting away with me. 2. 3. And we're just going to keep stirring this until it gets nice and warm.
Now this is just like a basic roll recipe.
Yeah, actually this recipe is really cool because you can use it to make rolls, or you can use it to make hamburger buns, or you can roll it out flat and make cinnamon rolls, which we will do with some of this dough here in a minute. Let's see if that's how warm that is. I think that's good.
Okay.
I'm going to pour this in here. Here, you can hold this now. And you just want to stir this up really, mix it really well. You don't have to any amount of time, just until you notice that all the flour's mixed in there really good.
Kind of makes a sticky dough.
Yeah, it makes kind of a, it's
Kinda
not like a stiff dough yet.
Kind of like a cookie dough.
Yeah, you're using a fork to stir it. And once you've added your other flours, when you're going to use your hands in there. See, now it's already starting to get stiffer, and I'm going to have to flour up my hands here, because it'll start sticking to your hands if you don't use oil or flour. Can you get me a cup of that out? Maybe not quite a whole cup. I like to use some wheat flour and some white, about half and half. It helps them to rise better than just using all whole wheat, and it's a little healthier than using all white flour. But you can use all white flour if you want. That's good. Just knead this briefly. You don't have to do it for any, like 5 minutes, any amount of time. It is good to knead dough until it's, what does it get, kind of elastic?
Yeah.
You can kind of feel it when you're working it with your hands. It's really good to do that. But this, because it's a quick recipe, you don't have to do like time it 5 minutes or 10 minutes, nothing exact here. Just work it to where it's working good.
We're gonna roll it out here?
Well, I have to let it rest for 10 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I think that's kneaded well enough. I'm gonna put it back in the bowl here. And I have still a little bit of flour on the bottom that'll keep it from sticking. And I'm gonna cover it. Can you get me a towel to cover with? I'm gonna cover it up, and then we're gonna let this rest for 10 minutes because it's a quick bread. That's all it needs to rise until it's time to roll it out. Alrighty, we have waited 10 minutes and our dough has started to rise. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna roll it out to about a 1/2 inch thickness. And you want about 1/2 inch because if you get them too flat, they won't rise enough. So, let's see.
That's about it.
I think that's about right. Well, anyway, we're gonna go with this. And even if you get it a little more than a 1/2 inch, it doesn't matter because, like I said, you want them to rise, so it'll end up nice. I'm gonna take my jar ring and I'm gonna cut it out. That's about the size you're gonna get them. Cut out a few here. Whoops. And they might not look quite as big right now, but when they rise, they get all nice and fluffy and they spread out wider, so they're about the size of a hamburger. So you get them, cut out like that, and you can finish cutting them out, and you can, get your dough back together and roll it out again, to make more. But right now I'm just gonna go and we have some already risen here. They've set for 30 minutes here in the oven. I wanna show you what they look like. This is what they're gonna rise to. They're gonna get about this size. Let's move this out of the way. This is nice. This is what you want them to look like. They're gonna get all risen and big like this. And what's really fun is you can make them look professional and put sesame seeds. Here they are. And you just take some melted butter and you brush the top of your rolls.
You want to be gentle so they won't fall.
Yeah, so they won't, because if you are too rough with them, they'll sink and fall. You don't have tall hamburger buns anymore. So once you brush the butter on, you can sprinkle on your sesame seeds, if you like sesame seeds. And they look all nice and professional like that. And
so this is after you cut them out, you let them rise for 30 minutes?
Yeah, you cut them, when you cut them out like this, you can set them on a grease tray and set them in your oven or just somewhere where there's not any drafts. And you let them rise for 30 minutes. And then once if you want, I usually don't put sesame seeds on them, but it's fun. And if you want to, after you get your sesame seeds on, you put them in the oven and bake them from 12 to 15 minutes. All right, these are ready to go into the oven now, and we're going to bake them at 400 degrees for 12 to 15 minutes until they're golden brown and they look done. And that's it. It's easy and it's quick, and I have a lot of fun doing it.
Using the same hamburger bun recipe, we are going to make cinnamon rolls.
These are really fun and easy, and they get sticky, which can be fun too. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take the recipe and we're gonna roll it out just like when you're making buns, except this time we're not gonna cut it out. We're gonna roll it flat, which this has risen for a while, so it's gonna take a minute. And you kind of want it to be like an oblong shape, You want it kind of even like that because you're gonna roll it this way. So. And you want it thinner than what you do for hamburger buns. Yeah. You want it a lot thinner because you're going to be rolling it up a lot more.
We need to move it this way a little bit.
Yeah, why don't we move it this way?
Here we go. That way?
Mm-hmm. So you just work on it, keep rolling it out.
Kind of taking on a strange shape here.
Roll it this way a little bit.
And how wide do you want it?
Well, it can, you want it longer than you do wide, but it can be, you know, kind of wide. You don't have to have it like really narrow. So, I guess just
Like that?
yeah,
That looks good.
about good. Well, you
Okay.
also don't want the dough to be too thick. I think that's thin enough. I think that'll work.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is gonna work here. For the butter, the butter and sugar that I put in, you just melt your butter, and then I never measure. I use about a stick of butter for this much dough for the recipe, and then I just start adding my brown sugar. And it's mostly
it to taste?
you're just doing this to taste. So what you want is your brown sugar to kind of dissolve in this butter here, and I just keep adding it until it looks like about a good spreadable consistency of butter and sugar. I think we need a little more.
More sugar.
It'll make it good and sweet. I mean, I'm of the opinion that you can't have cinnamon rolls that are too sweet and too cinnamony. So
Definitely not.
you just mix that really good. And I think this is about right. It could probably be mixed a little bit more, but for now we're just gonna go with this. All right. So we're gonna take this here, and you can just pretty much just dump it on your dough here. Then you want to get a fork and just spread it, or a fork or a spoon or a rubber spatula. Spread it around evenly. It might drip off the edges, but that's okay. You want to get a spoon and help me? All right, and with this you want to kind of get it, you know, evenly to all the edges. It's okay if you don't get it like right up close all the way. And it depends on the size of your dough. You might want to make it a little bit more, maybe a little more butter and a little more sugar. Like I said, this isn't any exact science. You can just have fun with it and add, you know, just as you go. You might want to scrape that out with your spoon.
Good.
Cinnamon rolls are fantastic and fun to make, so I always have fun with these. Okay. And then the fun part is adding the cinnamon. Now, last time I made cinnamon rolls, I forgot to put the cinnamon. It was hilarious. Everyone was so excited to have cinnamon rolls, and there was no cinnamon.
So they weren't cinnamon rolls.
They were just sweet rolls. But this is the same thing with the butter and sugar. I don't really measure. You can just add it to taste to where it starts looking good on the dough, and it smells really good. I think that should do. If you're not a big cinnamon fan, then you don't have to put as much. Maybe I'll sprinkle a little bit more. It doesn't come out as fast. Okay, I think that's good. All right, this is the fun part. You start rolling it. It's just, you know, just easy. You start rolling it up. And right when you're getting to the edge, you take this in and you fold it up over like that. And you kind of want to pinch that together. And it'll leak out a little bit, but that's okay. Just, it's going to turn out good. You can't hardly go wrong. The easiest way to cut your cinnamon rolls is to use string. Here, why don't you cut me some string? And it cuts them, it gets them, your nice even rolls, cuts them clean. And what you do is you put it up under your cinnamon roll like that, cross it over and pull. Let's see if we can cut these kind of fast. It will start leaking out everywhere, get gooey, but that's just part of making cinnamon rolls. You have to take the risk of getting sticky. See how quickly we can get this. And just like the hamburger buns, once you've put the sugar and the cinnamon and the butter, you're going to set them in your tray and let them rise for 30 minutes. Because they're quick bread, they only have to rise for 30 minutes. And then you bake them at 400 degrees for 10 or 15 minutes. It's very similar, very easy. You have your end results very fast, so it's a quick satisfaction. They're leaking. Oh no. This is something fun that you can do with your children or your grandmother because it's easy. It's anyone can do it because it's not a complicated big issue. And there's our tray. That's what they're going to look like. We'll let that rise for 30 minutes and then we'll be ready to bake them. Here's some cinnamon rolls that I baked earlier. I think they're ready. They smell really good. And this is what they've risen to. They fill up the pan, which is a good thing because it keeps them moist. And something that also helps keep them really moist and taste really good is you can take melted butter, just brush that on top. You know, just a little bit. You don't have to use too much. It's kind of like giving them a glaze. You know, it's just a really easy, simple glaze. And if you like, you can put a little maple syrup on top. You can just pour your maple syrup in something. Use your butter brush. Okay, that's plenty. If you don't have maple syrup, you can use butter and honey, or you can skip the glaze entirely. It doesn't matter. But this makes it taste really good. I like maple syrup. I think it's a good touch. Okay, just put that on there, and here they are. One of the easiest things you can do with quick breads. Everyone loves cinnamon rolls. Thanks for joining us, Mom. Today we're going to make pizza dough, which you can do several different things with the pizza dough, this pizza dough recipe, besides just making pizza. You can make pizza sticks, which is wonderful. Would you like to start chopping up the herbs for?
Yes. Oh, I love the herbs. It makes a wonderful bread to add fresh herbs from your garden. We have rosemary, we have Greek oregano, we have lots of basil. That makes the pizza wonderful. We have thyme, and thyme is a real nice little herb. You get the little stem and just pull it off, and it's ready to sprinkle all over your pizzas. It's wonderful. So it has a wonderful flavor. We can take this little rosemary. We can do the same thing with rosemary, but I like to pull it off the stem, and I like to chop it up just a little bit more so I can have nice small herbs, you know, sprinkled on that pizza dough. It's going to be delicious. It smells wonderful.
All right.
Okay.
I think while you're chopping up the herbs,
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and mix up the pizza dough.
Great.
I've already put my flour in the bowl here, which is 2 cups. You know, I think I'm going to add about another half cup, 2.5 cups of flour here. You can get enough flour. And this one is a very, very fast dough. You add 1 tablespoon of yeast and a teaspoon of salt. And you're just going to mix these dry ingredients together. This is one of those quickie recipes. This is even faster than the quick rolls. You mix the dry ingredients up really good. And you can add a tablespoon of honey, which I think I'm going to today. I don't always. It's not particularly that you have to have honey, but it does help with the yeast, so I'll add about a tablespoon of honey. Just let that pour in there. Okay. And you want your water to be comfortably hot. Or comfortably warm. I think this should be good enough. You add your water and start mixing that in. Might have had just a little bit too much flour, but I'm also going to add 4 tablespoons of oil. I'm just using olive oil here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, olive oil is a very good oil to use in your pizza and Italian breads because it has that very strong olive flavor, or it can, which is a very Italian thing. And then you can just start kneading this together. And if you have too much flour, you can just get a little bit more warm water and add that to it. I think this is going to turn out. I think this will be good. And with this pizza dough, I guess because it's one of the quicker ones, you do want to knead this for about 5 minutes. You want to time about 5 minutes is a good amount of time to knead this and start working it. And if you have a little bit extra flour in the bowl, as you knead it, it'll work in. It will, the dough gets kind of stickier a little bit, so it'll usually work in. And you can feel this getting really elastic once you've been kneading it for the amount of time.
Now, how much herbs would you like on the?
Well,
you want me to just keep cutting?
Yeah, just keep cutting. We'll put a lot on there.
Till it looks
We'll experiment
full?
this time and
Okay.
just make it really flavorful.
Oh, it's going to be wonderful.
So a little bit more you want to tell us about the herbs? What are you cutting up now?
Basil. I just love basil. And we grow a lot of basil. It's wonderful in pizza. And when you cut it like this releases the wonderful smell of the herbs and flavor of the herbs. So by cutting this really small like this, it's really going to enhance the flavor.
These are excellent. Once you have them baked, these are excellent to dip in pizza sauce. That's my favorite way to eat them. They taste so good. We're also going to put a little bit of cheese once we have them rolled out. We're going to put the herbs and the cheese on the pizza dough. And you can use any kind of cheese, your favorite kind. You can use mozzarella, is a really good kind. Today I'm going to use cheddar. I think this dough has been kneaded enough. So I'm going to bring it over here to roll it out. Now you want to, this is a very versatile dough. Can I come have you hold this for me? Hold this paper still.
Thank you. You want me to bring it this way? Okay.
Yeah, if you can do it like that, that works. You can just roll it to about 1/4 of an inch thickness, and you can use that for your pizza crust. You can bake it and then add all your sauce and your toppings. But today I'm going to roll it out to put the cheese and the herbs on it for the pizza sticks.
Really smells good, doesn't it? I can think that olive oil makes
it
smell
does. The
so
olive
nice.
gives it a nice flavor and a nice smell.
Mediterranean smell.
Yeah, let me
okay.
a little bit.
Okay, you got it?
Yep. If you have
This is going to be nice.
stiff dough like I do today, you might want to enlist a helper. Trying to roll this out thin. Now you're going to want to roll this out pretty thin because you're going to double it over, and there's going to be cheese and herbs in the middle. And they're going to make it thicker. So if you roll it out really nice and thin, then you make sure that your crust gets done. I think that's long enough. Let me try to roll it out a little bit this way.
That's nice. Really did roll out good.
Yep. You think that's flat enough?
I think that's nice.
I think that's thin enough for now. If you want yours thinner, you can make it. You can just keep rolling it.
A little longer.
I'm gonna get some butter here, melted butter.
Go around you. And
you
go
can
back
just
to my herbs.
brush melted butter. It's mostly, I guess, just for taste. This isn't something you have to do.
Oh, you just about ready for the herbs?
Yep. Are you almost done with them?
Just let me know.
Okay. I think we're ready.
All right.
Want to start sprinkling those on there?
Yes,
Get
ma'am.
the cheese.
Oh boy, that is going to be nice. This is really going to be nice. I'll just put a kind of the basil and try to get it. Make sure I get it all around there, and then I'm going to find the rosemary and sprinkle the rosemary around.
That looks good. It really smells good too.
Smell is nice. What's nice is if you grow the herbs fresh out of your garden, it's wonderful. If you don't, there's farmers markets and grocery stores that have wonderful fresh herbs.
You think that's good?
Yeah. You ready?
All right,
well,
that looks
why don't
good
I
to
just
me.
look?
You want to just dump it all in there?
Yes,
You might
I
as
love
well.
it.
All right, and the amount of herbs you put is up to you. I mean, it's your preference if you want a lot, if you just want a little bit for flavor, or if you just want to put cheese. It's completely up to you. It's very easy. I'm just going to sprinkle my cheese on here. I like a lot of cheese. And have it already grated up. I'm using cheddar, but like I said, you can use any kind you want. Just sprinkle this on here.
It's very sunny. Oh, this is
Cheerful
gonna be
pizza
good.
sticks, all nice and yellow.
Oh, cheerful.
All right, I think that's enough. And now we're going to, this part's a little more tricky because you don't know if your cheese is going to stick, but usually it does. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold it over like that. Kind of seal the edges together a little bit. Make sure it all meets together like that. And then, oops, I like to roll it out a little bit more again. You don't have to. I think that'll work. And
now, if you were making a pizza, would you roll it out a little thinner?
if you're making the pizza crust, you would just roll it out to size your pan. And, you know, it depends on whether you like a thick or thin crust. This will rise. So if you like a really thick crust, then you just roll it thicker. And if you like a thin crust, you roll it flat. Okay, you want to bring my tray over here so I can slide this on there?
Yes, ma'am.
Just going to slide this on here, and I need to get this paper off the edge. I'm using parchment paper here. You don't have to. It just makes it easier to slide. I think that's good, Mom.
Okay.
To slide onto your tray. If you want, if you have a really flat cookie sheet without any edges, you can just roll it on your tray and do it completely like that. But parchment paper is easy that you can just slide it on your tray, and it also bakes. So I think we're going to put these in the oven now. We have come to the end of our quick breads, and we've gotten the pizza dough out of the oven, the pizza bread. I'm going to go ahead and score it now, cut it into pizza sticks. How the width that you cut them depends on how wide you like to eat them. So I'm just going to cut them about the average pizza stick size.
These look wonderful.
I think they turned out. This is such a simple recipe, you can hardly go wrong. I mean, I've never seen these pizza sticks not turn out. Everybody loves them. They taste awesome. And if you want, you can cut them again halfway, which I'm going to go ahead and do this time. Just like that. And as you can see, they're full of cheese and herbs.
Oh,
And they look wonderful.
They smell
You can
good,
dip them in
too.
pizza sauce or just eat them plain, and they're something that everyone is sure to enjoy.
Now we've come to my favorite part, what I like to call a meal in a loaf. This is something that's simple, but it can be very elegant. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some basic bread dough, 1 loaf recipe, and we're going to get some eggs. We're going to do breakfast in a loaf for today. So I'm going to get about 5 eggs.
Help you out here.
Yeah. I'm going to let Mom whip these eggs, and I'm going to stir fry some onions really quick. We're just going to pre-cook this egg mixture. You can put squash in here, you can put ham, sausage, put whatever you like. We're just going to make a little egg mixture, and we're going to put this in some bread, and it's going to be really nice. It's going to look very pretty and taste wonderful.
Can you make your bread dough ahead of time also?
Yes, you want to have your bread dough made and risen once. And then you just mix this up. Got some zucchini and yellow squash and onions and a little bit of butter.
Is that good?
I think so, yeah. We're just going to add the eggs now. There we go. We're just going to pre-cook this a little bit. We don't want it all running over the dough. I'm going to let you watch this, Mom.
Okay.
And while this is cooking, we're going to take our bread dough here that we've let risen once. Going to take it out of the bowl. And again, we have our parchment paper. It's wonderful. You can roll your dough right on it, and then you can just bake right on it too. So it's great. It's a very baker-friendly paper. So we're going to try to get this. Another handy tip is to wet under your parchment paper so that it won't come up while you're rolling, which I might need to do that. Okay, we're just going to try to get this in an even shape here. Okay, and that's almost done. You just don't want it runny.
Okay.
Okay, what you want to do is you have your shape, and I don't think we'll use all this. We're going to put your mixture in the middle of the dough.
Okay.
Okay, we're just going to center that there. And now we're going to make some
You
cuts.
come around
We're going to
here for your herbs, Jazz.
you sprinkle the herbs, and we're going to cut on the bottom, and then start cutting out from the sides.
Ooh. You want more herbs, Jasmine?
Sure.
Oh,
Okay.
that's going to be wonderful.
Now what we're going to do here is we're going to take these, start with the end, take them, and you can twist them if you like, and you bring them to the center, and you just pinch, and then you just go down. And you're pinching and twisting. But what you want is you want some of your mixture, whatever you put in here, your breakfast egg mixture or your apple pie filling mixture, you want it peeking out a little bit. So we twist and pinch, twist and pinch.
That seems real easy, Jasmine.
It is. It's very easy.
Nice.
It's fun, and like I said, it can look very elegant. The more you practice and get creative, the better you can make it look. And after it bakes, it even looks nicer. And I'm just going to add a few.
Need a fork?
Well, I'll just use my fingers. Just add a few pimentos. I like to add them on top because you can see the color coming out, whereas if you'd mixed it in, you wouldn't see it as good. So just add a few pimentos on top. And this is ready to go in the oven and bake at 350 to 375. So what we're going to do is just slide it here.
You need it on this?
Yeah, you bring that down.
Okay.
You bake it on something flat. Just slide it on. Nice thing about this parchment paper, it's just ready to go. You can trim this off, and this is ready to go in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then that is it. That's that simple.
So how many slices on each side did you do? It just doesn't.
I just did
doesn't
1, 2, 3, 4. It depends on the length of your.
Oh, look at
and here's
that.
one that we've already done here. And
That is wonderful.
I put the pimentos and the olives.
Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful, elegant, but simple meal in a loaf.
An old faithful standby
And a favorite of the South.
is cornbread. It's my personal favorite bread, and I love making it. And Jasmine taught me how to make it when I was very young. And today, I would like to show you how to make some of the easiest, best buttermilk cornbread ever. My favorite recipe is really simple. I do 2 cups of cornmeal. And this is not self-rising cornmeal. This is just regular cornmeal here.
Starting from scratch, right?
Right, so we're going from scratch, which makes the best. And get my cornmeal in there, and I'm gonna do 2 teaspoons of baking powder.
Right.
1, 2. A teaspoon of salt. Put that in there.
When you get really good, you can just start eyeing the ingredients.
That's right. Now, I like to mix my dry ingredients first. Get them all mixed up together in there. I love making cornbread. It's my favorite bread. I could eat it all the time, all day long. Well, maybe not all day long. All right, got our dry ingredients mixed in there, and next I do 2 eggs. Just crack them right in there. And 1/4 cup of oil. Yeah, I got my recipe memorized. I've made it so many times.
It's a good easy bread, and it's fast.
Pour this in there. And it really makes good cornbread. Sorghum, if you have sorghum. But if you don't, honey will work good too.
Just a little bit, right?
Just a little bit. About a 1/4 cup is good. You don't have to use quite that much. I use about a 1/4 cup though. Take that. And then for the buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk on hand, a fast and easy way to make mock buttermilk is take your milk. I measured out 2 cups of milk, and then you can put vinegar or lemon juice in it, and I just put enough to where it's thick, and it kind of sours it in a way. About to 2 cups of milk, I'd say about 3 tablespoons of vinegar or 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, and that will make your mock buttermilk. I'm going to just add this in here to my rest of my ingredients. I'll start out with about that much. I'm gonna mix this together. One thing I like to try to keep from doing with my cornbread batter, is it's not a cake batter. So you don't want to whip it a whole bunch. I try not to stir it too much, just to get it, all the ingredients mixed in.
And blended.
And blended well, but not,
Don't whip it.
Don't whip it.
Less
See,
is
I'm just stirring it here, and already the baking powder in here is reacting to that buttermilk, and it's starting to activate. All right, do you want to put some oil in that skillet for me and turn it on?
Yeah, that's what makes the best crust, is to have your skillet on a burner and put some butter or oil, something to coat the pan, and it makes a nice crust. To have it hot right as your batter is about ready to go in. So we're just gonna coat the bottom of this pan and the sides really good.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Another thing you can do with your cornbread batter is, if you don't want to make a pan of cornbread, you can actually make Johnny cakes, which are like, you fry them up just like you do pancakes, except they're made out of cornmeal, and those go great with all kinds of different meals. We want to get this skillet, we want it nice and hot, so when we pour the batter in, it will kind of fry the bottom. We need to oil this too a little bit. We're gonna do some.
Yeah, you can find all kinds of cast iron pans.
Cast iron is the best. I always use cast iron skillets and pans to make my cornbread in. It makes the best. Other skillets will work, but I much prefer cast iron. Makes the best cornbread. All right. Okay.
Do you want a ladle or something?
Yeah, that would be good. A little ladle.
There you go.
Oh yes, perfect.
I'm going to preheat the oven to
Well, I better put it in here.
350.
See how that's frying in there? That is great. I like that.
And we bake this at 350, right?
Well, you can bake it at 400 or 350, either one.
Depending on your oven.
Depending on your oven. And you do it for, if you do 350, a little longer, 15 or 20 minutes. 400, about 10 to 15 minutes, 10 or 12 minutes. It's very easy to test to see if it's done. You just pull it out and stick a butter knife in the middle of it, and if it comes out clean, then it's ready to go.
So, and you just leave this on for a couple minutes, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not
do.
even
And
a
see
minute.
how it's bubbling up right there? You have air bubbles. That's really good. That means that your bottom, the crust of the cornbread is going to be nice and brown and thick, and I like that. I think that makes a really tasty cornbread.
It does. So we went ahead and turned it off, and we're just going to wait for this one, and we're going to pop them in the oven at the same time. That looks really good. There you go.
All right, they're ready to go in the oven, and we'll put them in here, and they'll bake for about 10 or 15 minutes. All right, I think our cornbread's ready now. Careful, it's hot. It smells so good. See how it's nice and brown on top? That's good. Now, I like to cut my cornbread. You can use any kind of knife. I'm using a butter knife. I always like to cut it, though, when it's still hot and fresh out of the oven, because it's really easy to cut then. Make it like this. All right, here we have the finished product. Nice and pretty brown buttermilk cornbread. We've made a lot of different breads today. I like them all, but good old-fashioned Southern cornbread is at the top of my list. I think it's the best, and I love it. And I hope y'all will learn to enjoy it and make it just as much as I have.
So what happens after 48 hours? 48 hours.
All right, we're still rolling. Let's do that action again.
Okay.